Hey everybody, welcome back to another video. Hope you guys have been enjoying the content on this channel as of late. Excuse me if my my voice seems a little weird. Just been getting off of some kind of illness, not COVID related, don't worry, but just getting back in the swing of things. And I'm a bit lightheaded as well, so if you see me drinking water throughout this video, just know that I just need to concentrate. So, especially for this video because it is the monthly film package once again, because I'm recording this video on June 1st, which means we got to recap all the films that I've seen this past month in May. And there's quite a bit. In total, I think we have 11 films to get through. Yeah, so I'm just going to make this intro short and sweet, and we're just going to dive right into to the monthly film package. As I always do with these monthly film packages, and in any video in general, I only watch things that I find interesting. I try my best to pick a range of films, so I'm not just touching dramas or touching comedies or action. I want to make sure I get a variety of films, and just so I can get a taste for certain pieces within certain genres. But it kind of just naturally happens in that way, though. Like, I don't try to make it like a system or anything. I just pick films, and they just happen to be all in different genres. So, and this list is no stranger to that. There's a lot of variety to this particular list. So, without any further ado, we're just going to cut this intro, and we're just going to begin this probably really long video, so let's just get started. So the very first film that we're going to address is Avatar. I did promise that I would review this film, as I did another film, which we will address shortly. But let's address Avatar first. I have my notes right here, so if you see me looking at my phone from time to time, that's just because I have my notes. And again, we have 11 movies to get through, so I'm going to be checking my notes quite frequently. But Avatar. Kind of funny that I've not seen this film up until this point. I've heard so much about it, obviously, with its box office take, and it's pretty striking visuals. At least that's what the word of mouth that I've heard, and people were saying that's just like the new Star Wars and all this stuff. And well, I finally now saw it, and I believe it was the first thing that I saw from May. And there's no question that the visuals are strong. I mean, there's absolutely no question to it. They are very striking looking visuals, and just the landscapes and the environment in general is very fascinating to explore. It's a very fascinating world, and it's also quite impressive to see how these visuals hold up to today's standards. And for me personally, the visuals is where my engagement came from the most. And the scope itself, I think, is also pretty fun to play in, and the environment itself holds many intriguing and unique details that I think really enhance your craving, your desire to explore and to learn more about this particular world of Pandora. So it has a great foundation, or it has the foundation to be something great. However, once it reminds you of its story, that's where we start to notice a lot of flaws with Avatar. Because once you are reminded of said story, you realize how narrow of a viewing you're having. Because its narrative is one of extreme familiarity. I mean, I've seen this narrative done so many times with like The Matrix, with the Lion King, with any chosen one type narrative. This is pretty much, it's like the same hollowness, the same conveniences, the same familiarities. Like it's all there. It's not like it's trying to do anything new with said narrative. It's just using that as their base. And, you know, like, it just feels, it just doesn't feel that distinct or that interesting or that original. It just feels like something that I've seen many, many times before, which is a bad feeling to have when you're watching any story, you know? I mean, because all stories are inspired by something, but it's not a good thing when you start to look at certain pieces and you start thinking of other better work. So, you know, I also think it's way too reliant on exposition. There's like a handful of moments in the film where I just thought you could have easily, like, it's a visually driven movie, but yet it's reliant so much on narration. Like, it's a really weird thing that I noticed. Like, the visuals are strong enough to tell me what's happening. I don't need Sam Worthington to explain the plot. I don't need that. Sometimes I do, but not like every 15 minutes. You know, and this is like a 3-hour film, so you can imagine how annoying that must have gotten. Speaking of Sam Worthington, getting to the worst aspect of Avatar, in my opinion, is all these characters are one-dimensional. None of these characters are engaging or fascinating, and to me that's really the big struggle that Avatar as a film has. It doesn't have any rich characters to follow. Sam Worthington, like, it's bad when the CGI performance is more expressive than the actual, you know, right on camera performance, the live action performance. Because I'm sorry, he's not that great of a performer. He's very stale. He doesn't have a lot of charisma to him. I think that he's just a pretty face. He's not particularly great, at least in this film. And the character of Jake Sully is just a one-dimensional character, someone who gets thrown into an environment, learns to love and cherish that environment, and then wants to protect that environment. We've seen this before, nature versus technology. It's a very easy film, thematically speaking, and also narratively speaking. It just doesn't, and with that you get very hollow characters to follow, and I couldn't attach myself to anybody. Zoe Saldana is just a love interest. Like, she's not anything that special. Sigourney Weaver is the person who wants to protect nature, the one human who likes to protect nature, and then you have the other humans who hate nature. It's not that hard to figure out. So I kind of agree with the majority when it comes to Avatar, or not the majority. I agree with the growing majority, we'll put it that way, or the growing voices when it comes to Avatar, because it is visually astounding. It absolutely is. It's a visually like feast for the eyes type thing, and it does hold an interesting world in Pandora. Like, I am curious when it comes to the sequel, even though I don't think it's all that special. I am curious to see what they do with this world, but it's what I expected. It's nothing more than a technical achievement, and it just doesn't hold any rich storytelling to match its visuals, or interesting characters to follow or invest into. So it's what I expected. I mean, because I've been hearing like the visuals are great, but I never heard anything about the story, and I can kind of see why now, because it is fairly hollow, fairly familiar, and the characters are just not that interesting. And the only reason, again, that they're making a sequel is because they're betting on that 3D is still a thing, which it's not, and Avatar made a whole lot of money. Because the reason why this movie made all that money back then was because of the 3D gimmick, and that's it. Because there are sequences in the film where it absolutely is made for 3D. Like that last big battle is definitely like a big 3D thing. And I've already said what I had to say about 3D, so you can go check out my Avatar 2 video if you want to hear my thoughts on that. But beyond that, like, it has like some really awkward editing choices at times. It has some pretty preachy lenses from James Cameron. Um, like it's not a real particularly great film. It has many flaws, and I do believe that it is overrated. So I agree with the growing voices when it comes to this particular movie. It's technically speaking, like, fairly good, or really good as a matter of fact, but narratively, I don't think it has much to say. So, next film we're going to talk about is Personal Shopper. This was directed by Olivier Assayas. I don't know how to say his last name. He directed films like Irma Vep, Clouds of Sils Maria, and he has worked with Kristen Stewart in the past with Clouds of Sils Maria, which is a film that I actually really do want to see. It's based on pictures and just descriptions. It sounds fairly nice. And also based on my experience with Personal Shopper, because the one flaw that I do give to Personal Shopper is that I do believe that the pace does feel at times offbeat or strikingly familiar. Like, it feels pretty mainstream in that regard. But beyond that, it pretty much succeeds at providing an ambiguous, ghostly, and personal narrative. Like, like, I could feel what this character is going through. I could feel her loneliness, this anxiety of wanting to find answers. Like, I like the commitment to this particular study, and I also love the room for meaningful interpretation. Like, it's not just, like, oh, visual there, done. Like, they actually try to create a interesting foundation to where when you have conversations about said film, the interpretations are actually very fascinating. It's not just like, oh, it's probably this, or oh, it's probably that. There's room for bigger conversations to be had when it comes to Personal Shopper. I also think the camera choices are pretty great. The utilization of the camera is great, and Kristen Stewart is a very natural presence. I loved her in Spencer, and I still think Spencer is probably her best work, comparing what I've seen. But Personal Shopper is right up there. I think she's a very natural presence. I think that she has an aura about her that I find to be very interesting, and I think that she just delivers a certain, like, I feel like this is the most Kristen Stewart of the Kristen Stewart performances, because it has a lot of the angst and a lot of the awkwardness and the socially awkward types that I notice a lot in Kristen Stewart and, like, interviews and stuff like that. Like, it feels a lot like Kristen Stewart is, like, playing herself in some regards. So I personally liked Personal Shopper. It was good. It was, like I said, I feel like the pace could have been better. It just felt at times a bit offbeat. But I think that it's fairly, very investing, and just a very interesting choice in narrative, and again, I really like the room that I have for interpretation when it comes to discussing said film. So it's a solid film. I wouldn't say it's particularly great. I wouldn't give it that kind of recognition, but definitely a solid piece. I would recommend it. Another film that I would recommend, Akira. Finally saw this film. This is my first real anime experience. Now, I have seen anime in the past. I've seen stuff from anime in the past, but I've never experienced an anime film or an anime, like, show fully. I've seen maybe like an episode of something there and there, but never have I really invested myself into this form of animation, just because no bias or anything, but I don't know, just never found myself interested to do so. I realize that Akira is very significant in terms of its animation style, and just a lot of the word of mouth about Akira. I just had to find out for myself what all the buzz was about. And I think that Akira might be my favorite film that I saw this month, possibly. Maybe. I think, yeah. Or this past, yeah, because there's so many great things about this. For starters, the animation is spectacular. I think the animation is so freaking good and so expressive. And I mean, it's anime, so it's gonna be expressive, but it's not like where it feels a bit self-indulgent, or where you're just like there's too much happening for you. It feels proper, you know. It feels like it's appropriate. It's the visuals just in general are arresting, and the narrative is compelling and engrossing. And the thing that I was very surprised by when it came to Akira is that this is a thematically rich story. There's a lot of themes and a lot of things that you can take away from Akira, especially that ending. I think it's just, you know, it talks a lot about greed, and it talks a lot about, you know, there's obviously political undertones to it with, you know, government system, and how they treat the public, and how they perceive the public, and corruption, obviously. And through all that, you know, seeing those themes, you get introduced to some thoughtful and fun characters to follow as well. Like, I really loved all the characters. I was having a blast with all of them. I felt really like sad for one of them because it was a very tragic end for this particular character. But that's the power of something that of great storytelling, is when you can become invested into such a narrative and you feel yourself emotionally engaged, you know. And Akira did that for me, where it blends really breathtaking visuals. Like the visuals are just amazing. It blends some really breathtaking visuals with its political optics, to create a powerful, enthralling, scary, because at times I found myself really frightened, particularly by the imagery, and a very nerving adventure that I think acts both informative and highly resonant. Because again, there's a lot of things you can take away from the film. Again, you can look at it from a political point of view, you can look at it from a humane point of view, and it has room for both of those types of discussions. And you feel emotionally invested. So yeah, watch Akira when you guys get a chance to. It's an amazing film. I absolutely loved it. Loved it, loved it, loved it, loved it. Please go check it out when you guys get a chance to. Next one up is The Fugitive. Harrison Ford starring as, you guessed it, a fugitive. Fugitive on the run. And the best way that I can describe The Fugitive is that it's the kind of fun that, how do you say it? It's like a solid turn your brain off kind of movie, because it certainly holds some solid level of entertainment value. There's no doubt about that when you watch it. It's a fun movie, and also the charisma of Harrison Ford. But this definitely holds many glaring conveniences that I think really prevent it from becoming more convincing. And I also believe the movie requires a certain degree of disbelief to buy into the main character, because there's things that Harrison Ford's character does throughout the film that just feel a bit, again, convenient, and also just a little out of character. Like, it's like, oh, okay, so all of a sudden he can do this and that, and I understand why, because we have to move the story along, but it just feels strange, you know? And I feel like I said, it is kind of a turn off your brain type of thing, and the reason for that is because it functions more like a commercialized thriller than one of grit and merit. Because again, while watching The Fugitive, the plot is kind of like, okay, like especially the way it's presented it. Again, there's many glaring conveniences. Like there's points where Harrison Ford will hide in one spot or walk away from one spot and somehow is able to dodge the police. And you look at how, you know, the situation at play or what he's doing, and you're like, how did they not catch you? You know, like that's kind of your response. You know, it's like, it's not like, oh wow, he's really skilled. It's more like, are they that dumb? You know, like they should be able to catch you. You know, so it's more or less just mindless fun, I guess. And for that being its divine purpose, because that's really, like, The Fugitive knows this. That's the reason why I give The Fugitive a little bit more credit than perhaps I should, because I feel like it understands that it's mindless fun. It's not trying to be serious and all this stuff. At points it wants to, but I feel that it like I said, it functions more like a commercialized thriller, where it just feels like, you know, all right, well, we have Harrison Ford, and let's throw a plot together, and then let's hope to God that we make money, you know? Like, it's just kind of banking on a star kind of thing. And for all that to be its purpose, I found some interest. There's not a whole lot of investment in this, but I think there's a fair amount. Like, some of the action scenes are fun. Harrison Ford, again, is very charming. So it's decent. It's not bad. I probably would pass up on it, though. Tommy Lee Jones's performance also is just a weird thing to watch. I know that he supposedly won an Oscar for it, but I don't know why, but it was a really weird performance. Is it just me, or is it that Tommy Lee Jones always fits best in comedies? I don't know why, because he has like this certain delivery that I feel like always works in a comedic sense, but in a serious sense, like The Fugitive, it just feels really strange. It just feels a bit inconsistent with everybody else at play, you know? Also, if you can't figure out when this film was made based on the opening credits, I'm not sure what will, because it's so clear that it's made in the 90s. Like, it's very, very clear. But yeah, I thought it was a decent watch. I don't think it was particularly great. Like I said, there's many conveniences taken with it. But if you like just mindless fun, then I think The Fugitive might satisfy you in that regard, to an extent, that is. Next one on the list, Top Gun. As I said in my first impressions video for Top Gun Maverick, I would be addressing the original Top Gun on this monthly package. And I kind of already did with my first impressions video, but just to recap on what I was saying and to further some points that I was making. Top Gun, in my opinion, is the original Top Gun, not Top Gun Maverick. Even though Top Gun Maverick feels more like a remake than a sequel, but whatever. In my opinion, the original Top Gun to me is the quintessential stereotypical cinematic experience, in that it's extremely cliched in every sense of the word. I know that there's popularity for this film. I know that people really like it. I think it's purely because of the cheese, because the movie taps squarely on that. It's also on its melodramatic antics and its large amount of masculine dominance, because this is a very boyish type movie. But it's super cliched. Like, there's the overuse of song/music, its predictable romance, to its hollow dimensions, to its squeaky clean and perfect protagonist that receives no consequences to his arrogant actions. Like it's thinly crafted. It's thinly crafted. And I think also awkwardly acted. I think Tom Cruise was better in Top Gun Maverick than he was in here, because he just felt miscast. Like in Maverick, it felt more suitable, but here it felt really out of place. So I feel like he was a bit miscast in the first movie, but not in the second. I feel like he actually was a lot more comfortable in Maverick. With the first one, it just felt like he was still getting his feet wet as a performer. So, and trying to feel more comfortable being on a film set. So I'm not sure if it's one of his earlier work in Top Gun, but I don't know. He just felt really shy and out of place for me. I also feel like it's incomplete in design in terms of a film, because it feels like there's more scenes that needed to happen in order for me to feel the depth or the resonance of what they're trying to do. Because there's obviously scenes like, when, spoilers if you haven't seen Top Gun, when Goose dies, it just feels like it kind of just happened, like I was hoping that, or I think that the film is like missing like 20 extra minutes, because more time, to really like get some kind of resonance. I feel like it would have helped if we had a longer time. But similar to The Fugitive, like it has some mindlessness. But within that, I do find some aspects of this entertaining, particularly the flight sequences. Those are really fun. I really like watching those flight sequences. They're pretty entertaining, even if it doesn't mesh well with what's trying to be established here. It's still fun to see. They stand firmly on their own, those particular sequences. But Top Gun as a film, it's as B as a B movie gets. Like I could see why it's popular, based on that. But for me, it feels like the crew went on vacation, not on a creative endeavor. So, I mean, it's really disposable. It's mostly harmless, but it's fairly uninteresting. So that's kind of how I pit Top Gun. Pretty kind of boring, but not anything to really get mad about. So, all right, next one up is Network. This one I actually am kind of looking forward to talking about, because this is directed by Sidney Lumet, who directed 12 Angry Men, which I love. I love 12 Angry Men. And as the title suggests, it's about a broadcast network. And I won't say much further, because I kind of want you guys to go into this a little bit blind. I don't want to give away too much about what the context of said film, because man, this acts on two fronts. It acts very disturbing, but it's also very strategical in its study of morality, ethics, and absolute narcissism. Like they address certain things that I did not expect coming from this kind of film. I think that the performances are spectacular. I think they're electrifying. I think that the narrative and the structure itself is very tightly organized, and sharply written. Like the dialogue is just great. Just on the money, just like perfect. Just really well written, and holds a very great performance from Faye Dunaway, but a very despicable character. Despicable to the point where I really hold no sympathy for her. Like I think that that's one of the aspects which brought the film down for me, because that particular character prevents the story from generating a sense of resonance and compassion, because Faye Dunaway is someone that we follow quite prominently throughout the film. And I feel like like her, she is an absolute narcissist, just the way that she is, and it's so hard to get behind her character by seeing what she does throughout the entire film, and um, and it's just like the performance is great, but the character just felt so hard to like. Like it was really really hard to like that character. I could really resent that character. Um, and beyond that, I mean, it does remind me of the likes of Doctor Strangelove and All the President's Men. Um, but I love those movies. So I'm glad that it reminds me of a film of those two kind of films. Um, and through all those aspects that I just mentioned, great performances, tightly organized narrative, a very sharply written screenplay, a great performance from Faye Dunaway, but again, just not a great. It's a hard character to like. Beyond that one that one aspect, all the other aspects create a solid piece of social commentary that I think really holds a strong voice within our current society of people. Because the message of Network is still pretty loud and clear. We all live in a world of imagination and a world of pure ignorance. And that particular statement still holds true to me. I think that those words kind of in many ways describe our society right now. So it's very timely, and I think that the presentation is just pretty damn good. I just wish that I liked Faye Dunaway's character a little bit more, because that's really my only gripe with Network, because other than that, it's really solid. I just wish that I got behind her character, but I just couldn't. I hated her character. I absolutely resented her character the whole way through. And I was really happy when certain things happened to her towards the end. Like, really, really happy. Alright, next film. Here comes the water. Is going to be Leave No Trace. This stars Ben Foster and Thomasin McKenzie, who would end up doing a couple of films like Jojo Rabbit, Old, was it Last Night in Soho? Yeah, I think that's the name of it, Last Night in Soho. This, I believe, was her debut, or at least her big break. I think that it does walk on familiar grounds. And you're not as involved as you should with the film. I feel a little bit distant from what I'm watching, but what the film really hinders on, and I think is purely the heart of it, is the dynamic of these two excellent leads. I think these two performances are great. I think Ben Foster is so damn good in this. I think that he portrays trauma and the ideas of PTSD really, really well. I was really sold on those particular aspects when it came to viewing his character. And Thomasin McKenzie, she's a very quiet presence, but her quietness is also her strength. I think that she plays subtleties really well. She exaggerates when she needs to, at appropriate times. And I think that these two performances really are what captivate you through this rather shallow and tame coming of age story. It's not that in depth. It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. But it also has some stunning framing, some beautiful landscapes to explore, and a filmmaking style, just to clarify, that I think really suits this particular narrative. And I really like the boldness of where it ends. I really like the ending. I think that the ending, was a really great stopping point, because if they kept going after that, I felt that it would have become a little bit redundant and a bit boring. So I do wish there were more details to explore with this. Like I said, it's pretty shallow. I feel that more details would have enhanced the drama quite a bit. But I find myself fairly satisfied with it. Like I said, it has two really great performances at the center of it, and I really think that that's what keeps you fairly interested. So I would say if you're wanting to see some great performances, watch Leave No Trace. And if you're looking for something a little bit more of an easy viewing, I think Leave No Trace might be a good pick for you, because it's not anything deep. It's a pretty simple story, but it was a fairly interesting one, even if it could have benefited from a little bit more layers. So yeah, not bad, but could have been better. So. And now we come to High and Low. I think this might actually be my favorite film from May, because Akira Kurosawa, if you guys don't know, is my favorite filmmaker of all time. I think that he's made some of the best films in cinema: Seven Samurai, Rashomon, Throne of Blood, The Hidden Fortress, Yojimbo. I think that he's done some amazing, amazing work. And High and Low is no exception. Boosted by the incredible craftsmanship, in my opinion, by the master of cinema. I think that he's just the master. Exquisite framing and camera work. Like, the camera work in this is just stunning. I'm a sucker for black and white, so obviously it's already got me from that alone. But just the way that he frames certain shots, the way that he moves his camera, the way that the places that he puts the camera, it's just so like just mesmerizing. And the performances are quite remarkable. Toshiro Mifune is one of my favorite actors of all time, so seeing him do his thing here, even if it was a small role, I still loved his presence. And I loved the other performers as well. I believe, yeah, Tashuwa Nakadai, I'm not sure if that's how you say his name, sorry, as the lead detective. I thought he was pretty good as well. And like, narratively speaking, it's very engrossing. It's an engrossing tale of child abduction. And it's told through two key perspectives, through Toshiro Mifune's and through the detectives. And similar to Network, I think that it acts as a very strong commentary on the morals of being integral. I think that that's really what gets me with High and Low, is that I think that its politics are much more fascinating to me than Networks, because Networks is about just ethics and the morality of certain things. Here it's about integrity. It's about honesty to oneself and doing the right thing, even at the greatest of cost. Like, to me, those ideas are much more fascinating to me than in Network. And I think, and also within making those choices may lead to one's downfall, but new doors may open depending on the choices themselves. Like, that whole message, that whole idea through High and Low was so interesting to me. And I think, again, it's through the brilliance of someone like Akira Kurosawa. And it just further cements my opinion that Akira Kurosawa is truly the master and the greatest influence in the art of cinema. And I know it sounds like I'm being a bit exaggerative, but I truly mean that. I think that he is the master of cinema, and High and Low just furthers that point. I love Yojimbo. I love Seven Samurai. I love The Hidden Fortress. Love Throne of Blood. Did I mention Throne of Blood already? Sorry, I think I might have said that twice. Akira. I love Akira. I love so many of his films, and High and Low is just another on that list. I absolutely loved this film, and I would totally watch it again. I would absolutely watch it again, and pick up more thematically, and just to watch those performances again. I thought they were just really, really fun. So yeah, High and Low. I think that that's probably my favorite of the month. Just Akira blew my mind again. Akira just blew my mind again, as he did with all his other work. He did it again with High and Low. 3 more films to go, so let's get to it. Next one up is actually the first documentary that we're going to be addressing on this channel, and that is Cameraperson. Cameraperson is a memoir. I say memoir, you'll understand why in a second, about a cinematographer named Christian Johnson, who also is the director of said film. And she just puts together a bunch of footage that she had taken over the years, and like I said, creates a memoir of some kind. And through that, we get to see certain events unfold. We get to see her personal life, and we get to see also her certain views on things, which we'll get to in a second. That kind of is an issue for me. But I love the idea of Cameraperson. Like how it starts off, I think is correct. It starts off on the right foot. It presents itself as a delightful and lovely exploration of the person behind the camera by means of some really visually stunning and powerful collection of images. Like the images themselves, despite the context or the ways that they're being used in some respects, all of them are great. Like it would be really bad if a documentary about a cinematographer created by a cinematographer had bad cinematography in it, you know? This has some really great cinematography in it. It's throughout the whole runtime. There's so many great images to see. It's disappointing, though, when Cameraperson decides to throw out its observational lenses halfway through, change direction completely, and become uncomfortably focused on a certain subject. Like, the film decides to push aside what was working and then push forward addressing a certain topic that's really sensitive and really it became uncomfortable for me because it just came out of left field for me. It's like have you ever had a conversation with somebody and you know you're just playing along, you're saying some stuff there and there, you throw a joke, you talk about that random thing, you talk about that funny incident that happened that last weekend, and then someone comes out of nowhere and says, let's talk about Ukraine. You know, like, it just felt a bit like, oh, okay, yeah, that wasn't really what we were talking about, that we didn't really invite that type of conversation in here. Okay, like that's kind of what I felt like with Cameraperson. Like, it just felt like, oh, okay, I guess we're gonna address this now. Through, detail, it's not just, oh, we're just going to show this briefly. We're going to really emphasize this particular point. And by uncomfortable, I mean how it fits within the idea of what this film is trying to be, not necessarily what it's about. It's just, the subject is pretty uncomfortable to talk about, but that topic that I'm talking about, by the way, is rape victims. Rape victims in vodka, to be more specific. And it is an uncomfortable topic to address. But I feel like it just goes against, being really, really pushing for addressing this certain topic. I feel like it just goes against what it pitched itself to be, the film. And it's almost like it's aware of it. Like, it eventually stops doing this and then goes back to being what it was at the start. It's like it's almost trying to make up for an abruption. Like, it kind of knew that it was abrupting itself, And with that, what you get is something that starts off with a unique purpose, that descends into something completely different and something that I'm not really jiving with. Which makes you wonder why she didn't just do a piece on a certain subject. Like I said, she's really emphasizing on rape victims. Why didn't she just do a documentary on that? You know, if she's really passionate about that, she clearly is based on the documentary. Why didn't she just do a documentary on that? Rather than doing this, albeit it's striking looking, it's a beautiful looking film or experiment, I guess you can say, for this kind of thing. Like, why couldn't she just do a documentary about that rather than doing something like this that claims to be a memoir about her years, not just, you know, like, oh, like I'm just putting footage together. Like, no, she claims that this is a memoir about her years and her life as a cinematographer. And for half of the film, I felt that. I felt that pitch. I was like, okay, I really feel like I'm looking at the person behind the camera, even though I never actually get to see them, you know. And it had the right idea at the start with being a personal study of itself, but it just stumbles in finding its identity, and it has a hard time finding the connection that binds these ideas together. Because again, I have no idea. Sorry, I have no problem with addressing these hard subjects, but it has to work well with what we have established. You can't just throw things in here and hope it sticks. And like, to put it bluntly, I have a hard time believing this film's intentions. I don't really believe it's a memoir. I think that it wants to make a certain statement about a certain subject, and that's totally fine. But the problem is that that's not what you were trying to make in the first place, and that's not the foundation that we have for Cameraperson. So when this sort of thing comes into play, it just takes you off guard, and it just feels a bit uncomfortable. Again, it's like, imagine if you're talking about, I don't know, like let's say you're talking about a sports game or something, like a baseball game or something, and then someone out of nowhere talks about the Texas school shooting. Like, it's like I don't know if I want to address this right now, because I wasn't, you know, like I wasn't really prepared for that, you know. Like, you know, it wants to discuss certain issues while also discussing itself and this person's personal life. The problem is that this movie doesn't have the room to be both, and it never knows what it really wants to be until the very end, and it just felt a little too late for me. Like, literally at one point, someone in the film says that this film was supposed to be about systematic violence against women. And at that point I went, okay, so originally you wanted to do that, and then you decided to spin this footage into a different type of purpose altogether. And what you end up getting is something that is just kind of clashing. Like, it's like, I want to do this, but I want to do this at the same time. And the film just kind of keeps doing this, like, over and over again. And I'm just like, no, I don't feel that the assertment of this certain topic, especially for how long it plays, I don't feel that it was appropriate in terms of the pitch, in terms of what this is trying to do. I just don't feel like it was appropriate. Again, like, imagine a conversation you're having and then someone brings up that school shooting or brings up anything else. You would feel a bit off guard. You would feel a bit uncomfortable, you know? So, I just don't feel like it was appropriate, so, for what this film was trying to do. So I think that it has a unique purpose at the start, but I just feel like it kind of stumbles and falls after that point. And I just feel like, I wouldn't say I was frustrated, but I was just kind of disappointed at the end of Cameraperson. So, all right, 2 more films. Let's do it. So, second to last film is going to be Insomnia. This is a Christopher Nolan joint. Nolan's a very interesting director to me. I think that he knows how to really make a picture look nice. I think that Interstellar, Inception, Dunkirk, his Batman movies, I think that they all look great. I think that visually they look quite nice. Technical wise, they're also really nice. Like I would say the same for Tenet and all that. But a lot of what Nolan lacks in his films, which is apparent also in Insomnia, is a sense of emotional depth. And I think that Insomnia is, I think it's more apparent in Insomnia than in other films. Because Insomnia is really trying to be, especially towards the end, this like emotional heft. There's a certain resonance that it wants to have, it wants to give to the audience, and I just don't feel it. I just don't feel that. Partially because of its editing. I feel like the editing style can be rather inconsistent, redundant, very doubtful-minded. Like there's a lot of times where it will cut back to certain images that we've already seen, just so that it's like kind of trying to clarify to the audience, like, oh hey, so this person's talking about this, so then let's cut back to that shot that we had a few moments ago, just so the audience is, you know, it believes its audience is stupid and that it can't figure it out on their own or be able to follow the narrative. So I feel like the editing was the real downfall of Insomnia. And I feel like it could have really used some trimming, by the way. Like the opening scene, like it takes like a good 5 minutes, I think, for that plane scene to end, where the opening sequence where the plane comes in. It takes about like 4 or 5 minutes, I believe, for that scene to get done, and it is ridiculous. That scene could have been cut down way shorter. Because there's just like, it's just random shots of the plane. Plane, 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 plane. Al Pacino talks. Plane, 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 plane. Hilary Swank, plane. It's like we can cut down on the plane. And there was other times throughout the film as well where I was like certain shots didn't need to be here. But I will say that halfway through Insomnia, it places itself in the waters of decency, because it finally starts to get a better grip to its concept at play. It's called Insomnia for a reason, and the editing style complements this to an extent. But again, it just doesn't feel right. It just feels, like I said, very inconsistent. But halfway through, it gets a better grip to the concept at play and the allowance of said concept to play. This is where the title Insomnia starts to really kick in. And I think that it's with the help of engaging performances, because I think that Al Pacino is good in it, like very solid in the film. Rob Williams is fine. I didn't really buy him as a serial killer. Because I feel like he was just kind of just doing Robin Williams, Robin Williams just doing his Robin Williams thing, which is still decent to watch, but I just, I'm not like getting anything like I'm not getting like Kevin Spacey or in Seven or anything. Like it's just kind of what, like it's all right. It's a celebrity, it's just a notable face, playing a role. But it also, the film has some really strong visuals. Like there's this great scene in the fog that I think just visually looked really, really nice. So I do think that it starts off on the wrong side of things. Like again, that plane scene, like that could have been cut down a lot shorter. And I feel like there's a lot of setup. Like it takes like a good 30 minutes to set up things. Like we'll be talking to two characters over here, and then we'll get to a hotel, and then we'll get to talking to two characters again, and this and this and this and that, and then we'll get to that fog scene, and that's when everything starts to change a little bit for me in terms of interest. But like, because again, Nolan lacks a lot of emotional depth or resonance, because when those characters are talking to each other, you feel like you're supposed to emotionally engage, but you just can't, because his characters are not meant to function in that way. They're just tools to move the story forward in order to get to certain technical exercises. So, because Nolan is definitely a filmmaker. A storyteller, he hits and misses. And Insomnia definitely hits more towards the end than in the beginning. But I feel like, because this is also a remake of a Norwegian film, I have a feeling that film's probably better. I heard it's better paced. So I might check that film out this month. But as a film, it's fine. I don't think it's one of Nolan's better work. I still give it to like Interstellar and Dunkirk. I think those films have better grips to their concepts and are a little bit more emotionally involved. Here, visually it's quite nice to look at, and the performances are engaging, and the concept at play, like the pitch itself, is interesting. I just think the editing style kind of kills it at some points. And again, the setup could have been way shorter. So I feel like more trimming and more commitment to actually caring about the characters, I feel like would have benefited Insomnia quite a bit. Because as it stands, it's fair. It's not great, but fair. So. And last but not least, oh my gosh, that was a lot of films. Last but not least, Masters of the Universe. Oh my gosh. So we did Super Mario Bros. And you guys saw how much I trashed that film. Super Mario Brothers at least had, like, there was at least a fun to it that, like, it's bad, but at least there's a fun to it. Masters of the Universe, like, here, let me show you the poster. So you guys see the poster right here? I don't know if I could zoom in on it. Can I actually get the picture? There you go. So you guys see the poster right there? How do I book these guys for my brother's birthday party? I mean, really, don't look at those costumes. Do they look like movie costumes, or do they look like those birthday costumes? You know, like when you book somebody to play a certain part. Like, oh, we're having a He-Man party, so can we get a guy to play He-Man? That's the kind of costumes that we're looking at right here. Because these costumes are ridiculous. Ridiculous costumes. And absolutely uninspired screenplay. Like, it's blatantly ripping off notable features like Star Wars, Dune, Superman. Like, the opening credits are a freaking ripoff of Superman. Just the colors and the palette, the score, like, sounds pretty much like Superman. Stupid characters, like, all these characters are stupid. None of them have logic to them. They're just doing whatever. Terrible performances. I'm telling you, like, at least with Super Mario Brothers, what's his name? Bob Hoskins, at least he was a decent Mario. Dolph Lundgren, I don't know what that accent is. It slips in and out like no tomorrow. Skeletor, oh boy, Skeletor. I could tell the performer is trying, but oh my gosh, that makeup. Wow, that makeup. That's some of the worst makeup I've seen in a long time. It looks like freaking mashed potatoes was like smeared on his face, or like Play-Doh. Like, it looks so bad. And beyond that, we have an atrocious looking production. The production just looks bad. It looks like they just threw things together and just hoped that it would stick. Some awfully glaring errors in the story. Like, we have everyone running around in these ridiculous costumes, and no one, like, because this is that stupid, like, we're going to the Earth type story where it's like the Smurfs movie, you know, like that type of story. So He-Man's, like, you know, hanging out with Courtney Cox on Earth and everything. She's wearing, you know, wear that's appropriate for the 80s. And then here comes He-Man wearing his costume and all these other characters. Nobody at any point addresses the costumes. No one addresses that, hey, why do you look like that? Like, no one addresses that. Even Courtney Cox, when she bumps into He-Man, doesn't address it at all, doesn't think, hey weirdo, get away from me. Like, she just is like, okay, this is perfectly fine. I see these types of dudes all the time, you know, big, buff, muscular dudes wearing barbaric type armor. Yeah, I've seen this plenty of times around here. That's pretty appropriate. Um, and just, oh man, like Super Mario Brothers was like a fun kind of bad. This was just bad. Like, I was like, at some point I was kind of losing my mind watching this. Like, I was like remember The Lighthouse with like Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe? That's kind of how I felt. I just felt like I was descending into madness, and I felt like I was going to start dancing around the room like Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson did. You know, when they were running, like when they were dancing with each other, when they were drinking really heavily at one point. I feel like I'm about to like enter. I felt like I was about to enter that kind of mind space, where I was just like, I feel like I'm entering it now, just talking about it, because this movie acts on three fronts. One, bad advertisement, because it feels super commercialized. A really poorly conceived music video, because the way it's constructed, it doesn't feel like a film. It tries to act like it, but it feels more like a really bad music video, especially towards the end. The He-Man and Skeletor fight feels completely like a music video with the strobe lights and all that. And the laziest form of mainstream filmmaking, because only mainstream types or parodies or whatever. This is like, I feel like I'm gonna like lose it like talking about this more. It's so nonsensical. It is so infuriating. It's really embarrassing. This is an embarrassment to everybody who worked on this. It's indescribably dull and boring. And the real story of this movie, based on the attitude of the whole production, is the quest for the paycheck. Where is the paycheck, and where is the exit? Like, that to me is really what this movie is. It's not about He-Man and, you know, his pals trying to get back to whatever the hell their home world is. It's not about that. It's about the search for the paycheck. Where the hell is the paycheck? I need my money. I need to get out of here as quick as possible. Like, please, just hand me a paycheck and let me get out of here. Like, it's really absurd. Like, it's a really absurd piece, and I can go on and on about it, but I'd rather not lose my mind. So yeah, Masters of the Universe, it's terrible. I think it's worse than the Super Mario Bros. Movie, because the Super Mario Bros. Movie, at least it had one decent performance by Bob Hoskins. I can at least see that they were trying in some attempts to do something. This, they weren't even trying. They were not even trying in the slightest with this. So, like I said, everybody is just running around looking for the paycheck. And I hope they got paid well, but I can't talk about this anymore. No thanks. We're done. Yeah, terrible. Just terrible. Absurd. And terrible. And there you have it. Those are all the films that I saw in May 2022. Loads of movies. Some great ones, some okay ones, some fairly good ones, and one really bad one. Which is, I think, going to be the ongoing tradition with these monthly videos. I'm going to try to watch at least one bad movie per month, or at least one movie that has been widely known as a bad movie. So, but yeah, that's it for this video, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Long video, my apologies. So, hope you guys will stick around and watch the entire video. I'm gonna go relax now because I am getting lightheaded, and like, talking about Masters of the Universe just made me feel stupider. But But yeah, you guys let me know your thoughts on all these movies, all 11 of them. Jeez. And that's it. That's it for this video. I'll catch you guys in the next one. It might be a first impressions video. Not sure. Whatever it is. Hope you guys will be around. And let me know any recommendations for the next month video, because today's June 1st, so I'm just starting up watching some movies again. I'm welcome to any recommendations, so anything like old or recent, I'll take it. But yeah, that's it for this video, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed it. You guys let me know your thoughts on all of these movies, all 11 of them. And that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm going to go lie down now because I'm exhausted. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Don't watch Masters of the Universe. Just don't. Save yourself. And if you do, have someone with you, because you don't want to bear through it alone. But yeah, that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye.